Hey guys, and welcome to the Money Podcast. This episode, we're talking about borrowing and lending from friends and family. According to the Census Bureau's Household Pulse Survey, 25.6 million people borrowed from friends and family this year. That's up from 19 million just a year ago. So here's the question. If a friend or family member comes to you for money, are you going to give it to them? It's been an issue for hundreds of years. If you don't believe me, listen to this line from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend. And it's absolutely true. A Bankrate survey found that nearly half of those who lend money to friends and family say it does not end well. So, when you're approached, or maybe you're about to approach someone else, what's the right way to do it? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm your host, Stacey Johnson. As usual, my co-host is financial journalist Miranda Marquardt. Hello, Miranda.
Hello, Stacey.
Our show editor is Aaron Freeman. Hey, Aaron.
Hello, everybody.
And our special guest this week, and I mean special, is Lynette Calfani-Cox, also known as America's Money Coach. Hello, Lynette.
Hi there. Thank you guys for having me. Woohoo.
Thanks for coming aboard. Now, before we start, guys, remember this is not financial advice you're going to hear today, so make sure you do your own research and consult your own experts before acting on anything that you learn here. But with that, let's dive in. You want to start off the discussion, Miranda?
Sure. So let's just start out with, what are some of the ways that people lend money to their family and friends? What are some of the things that you can do to get into trouble? I mean, we know about like giving cash, but have you ever seen people like giving credit cards to their family and friends? Like what do you see? What's some of the wild things that you see out there?
So people lend to family members, loved ones, sometimes even partners, and or spouses, in a whole variety of ways. So yes, there are cash contributions that are made that are intended to be repaid. But like you guys kind of laid the stage for at the top here, a lot of people regret it because it doesn't get paid back. But people co-sign for others, and they do sort of lend their credit. People add other people as additional users on credit accounts, like their credit cards. Some people fork over money to start business ventures or to launch startups or to finance or expand someone's business in some way. Some people help finance a person's education with the intent that they're either helping them out on the student loan front or giving them some capital for tuition fees, room or board, books or supplies. And sometimes they make agreements to have some of those monies repaid. Again, doesn't always end well, and thus the nature of our conversation today.
So when we're talking about all of this stuff, so for one thing, it's like you give the cash, maybe it's gone, maybe it's not, whatever. But what happens if you're going to co-sign on somebody's loan? Like, what happens to you if instead of just handing over the cash, what if you are in fact lending your credit, your good name? What are some of those pitfalls?
Sure. Well, honestly, I feel like co-signing for someone or loaning your credit status, as it were, is actually one of the more risky forms of making a loan. Because obviously, once you put your name on the dotted line for any other obligation as a co-borrower, you're individually and jointly responsible for that loan. And so a creditor could come after you for the money if the person doesn't pay as agreed. And of course, your credit can take a hit. And so any negative information, as you know, like say a 30-day late payment, for instance, will stay on your credit report for 7 years from the date of last activity, from when it last wasn't paid. And so, sometimes family members mend over, that $500 loan or something that didn't get repaid. But those credit dings actually tend to linger a lot longer.
Can I stop here? Can I ask you a question real quick? How many of us, there's 4 of us on this podcast. Who has lent money to family or friends here?
Oh, I've definitely done it.
Oh, yes.
Guilty. Okay, so I'm seeing 3 hands go up. Aaron, do your hand? Okay, yeah. All four of our hands are up. So we've all done this before. Okay, now let me ask this question. How many did it always turn out okay, or did it ever turn out okay?
No, it's the reason why I never did it again.
What about you two?
So for me, it turned out okay. I loaned small amounts, and it usually gets paid back when my friends and family get it. One of the interesting things for me when Lynette was talking about co-signing is my parents actually co-signed on my first car loan for me. So my parents actually lent their credit to me so that I could get my first car loan, which was really nice. But they did it because they knew I would make the payments, and I always did, and there was no problem there. No problem there at all. And it didn't end up causing them a problem. But later on, when I was like, what can we do for co-signing or something on something else? My mom said, no, this is going to reduce our available credit, and we have some big purchases coming up. So I'm sorry, we will not be able to co-sign on a loan for you at this time because it will impact our own ability to get credit. And so I think that's an important thing to think about too. It's not just those dings, it's their ability later on.
How about you, Lynette? Did it work out for you when you did that?
Oh, the stories I could tell. And
yeah, I was going to say, I could go on for days.
Give us a story, Lynette. Tell us a story.
I have a whole bunch of them. So I would say that it's been a mixed bag. But for the most part, it's been positive to the extent that the Bank of Lynette has long since been closed up, and I'm not in the lending business anymore. However, I've definitely made some sort of exceptions to the rule, let's say. So I'll tell you a couple stories, and obviously 100% true story. I hope my family members are not listening right now, but so this was a bad one. Okay. So once, this is when I was in college. I loaned one of my sisters money, and it was all of us were like, broke college students, starving, eating top ramen kind of thing. But I was working. I had also received some financial aid, etc. So my sister was in desperate need of some money, and it was a fairly large sum. I want to say for sure it was over $500. I want to say it was about $1,000, and I would have to probably like really rack my brains to go back and think. But long story short, we had an agreement for me to get repaid, and then she and I had an argument. and she literally said, of course this was decades ago, and I love my sister, and it's like totally water under the bridge and all that. But she, I was talking to her on the phone, and she was like, you know what? I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Just don't even talk to me. And she just like hung up the phone in my face. And I was like, I can't believe she just did that. And I called her back, and I was like, fine. I was like, okay, if you don't want to talk to me, fine. Don't talk to me, but just give me back, repay me. Talk to me whenever you're ready to repay me the money that I loaned you. And she goes, what money?
Oh, no. Of course, that was not a surprise.
Now. I can laugh about it now. I was like, excuse me? And so, again, I'll be honest. I don't know if I ever got any or all of that money back. And I don't think that I did,
Lynette, we have to call her right now.
Exactly. Good thing I have 5 sisters, so nobody will know like which one it was. So that was one that it kind of didn't work out. But I will say this on a more recent front for something that absolutely did work out, and that was intentional, and that obviously goes literally against what I just said a moment ago about loaning your credit. So for strategic reasons, my husband and I, we've told our kids that we want to provide them with what we call a wealth starter kit to help them launch into this world in the right way. And we've told them, there's a couple of conditions, first of which is be a good student and be a good person, So long story short, we told our kids, if you kind of stay on the straight and narrow, we'll buy you your first house. We'll put you through college debt free. We'll buy you a car and make sure that you can drive off into the sunset and you don't have to come and live with us or whatever. So with my oldest daughter, who has in fact graduated from college, we did buy her first house when she was a college student at the University of Texas at Austin. And we bought her a condo. She was on the mortgage. We co-signed for the property. We also added her as an authorized user on one of our longest standing credit card accounts. We did not give her the card. She never charged or did anything like that. But it was a strategic move to help her to establish credit and to become a homeowner and make that leap from renter to owner. Ditto for my son, who is now a senior in college in Raleigh at North Carolina State University. Also, when he was in his sophomore year, we bought him a place, we bought him a townhouse, and again, did it to help him to establish himself financially. Now, honestly, the risk to us was almost, zero, in that, again, it was a multi-pronged strategy that we were getting in-state tuition by buying property for them. So we saved ourselves a ton of money on college, and we had roommates that effectively the kids had roommates in their townhouse and in their condo who lived with them that covered the mortgage. And so again, it was a kind of a multi-pronged strategy there, but in effect, we were kind of loaning out our credit. But we did so with a lot of forethought about what that would look like.
Now, let me tell you the other side of that coin, Lynette. You've done a flawless job at lending people money. Here's how Stacy lends money. He has a few beers, and somebody goes, one of his friends goes, "Hey, Stacy, would you mind spotting me a few grand?" And Stacy goes, "Oh, of course, my friend. No problem." And so I've done this, I'm going to say 10 times in my life, and I've recovered the money once.
Yeah.
So I've just done a horrible, horrible job at being a lender. My parents did stuff like that for me that you were just describing you've done for your kids. I was a good borrower. I've never paid a bill late my whole life. But I'm a terrible lender. And one of the people I lent to, this was $5,000. I was at a party, and this is 2 years after I lent the money. At a party, talking to a whole group of people, people stand in a circle. And he says, "Stacy, I got a new boat, and it's bigger than your boat. It's nicer. I've got a bigger boat than you." And I'm like, I could reach over there and strangle you to death right now. You owe me $5,000.
And isn't the irony how conveniently they forget?
Yeah. It's amazing though. And this is a funny story, but the truth is when somebody owes you money, it really destroys the dynamic of your friendship.
Oh,
especially, obviously if they don't pay it back,
right.
Because, because every time they buy anything, they buy an ice cream cone. You're like, "Oh, geez, it's 75 cents. Could have gone back to repaying my debt." It just ruins your relationship,
Now, one thing I will say, Stacy, I'll beg to disagree with you respectfully here in a little bit to say that it ruins the relationship. I absolutely think that it changes the dynamics of the relationship. There's no question about that. But I actually have talked to, and we've, all had our personal experiences with this. We know others who have done it. You guys have obviously done the research on the studies that have been done into this as well. I am also an expert for AARP, and I do a lot of work with the 50 and older crowd. Parents, who often, and grandparents who often loan money to their kids and grandkids and then see what the outcomes are. So long story short, what I'm trying to say is that I actually have come across many people who say that when it was done in the right way, where both parties agreed upon what the terms were, knew the conditions, and then where both sides met those conditions, that it actually strengthened their relationship.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, I think, doesn't it matter more about how it makes you feel in the end when it comes to giving money? When I was living paycheck to paycheck, I had a friend who had a really good job, but they claimed to me that they lost their wallet and needed $500. I was like, "Yeah, no problem. You make good money, even though it was going to hurt me, I know I was going to get it back the next week." Well, come next week, like, "Hey, would you mind giving me that $500? "Oh, no, sorry, I can't do that right now." And asked again later, asked again. And eventually, as I kept asking, they started making me feel bad about asking them. for the money.
Go figure.
And that made me feel like, okay, you're a dirtbag, and so, but then I noticed, like, when I give my old car to my son, or give him money, or if I give time to a friend to help them out fixing something, that feels good, so you don't mind it. So I don't know if it's more about how it makes you feel, isn't it?
Yeah, well, by the way, let me do this. We've got to take a quick break, but this is a good segue, Aaron, because when we come back, what I want to talk about is how do we structure loans so that we don't end up disappointed, or maybe we shouldn't give loans at all, whatever, in other words, solutions to the problems that we've been talking about the first half of our show. That's what's coming up on the second half, right after this quick message. Okay, guys, we're back. And as promised, we're going to talk about how to solve problems in lending to friends and family, or even if we should. Actually, let's go around the horn real quick. Should we, is the Bank of Lynette closed? Like you said that at the beginning as a joke. I mean, are you now in a situation, Lynette, where you would not lend money to any friends or family, period, end of story?
Generally speaking, I don't. Like now, I really don't loan money to family members. What I will do is provide a gift to them. So I will, talk to them about what the situation is and understand what their needs are. And I'd much rather say, listen, I'm giving you this money. This is not a loan. You don't have to repay it. And sometimes people will say, oh, well, I want to do, but there's no expectation on my end, absolute whatsoever, to get it repaid. But for the most part, my family totally knows me now. They're like, don't even ask her. Don't even ask Lynette, because she's going to say no. So most of the time, if they come and ask about something, it's a no, because they will tell me the sort of backstory and their own drama and kind of what happened or what they did, et cetera, et cetera. And I am a strong believer in individual responsibility, and I don't like to promote what I call financially abusive relationships. And unfortunately, that's been a pattern in my family and in many families that I know. Financially abusive relationship just means someone that trust and love takes economic advantage of you. And sometimes they don't do it intentionally, but the intent doesn't matter. That's the impact. And like I said, it can change the dynamics of the relationship. When you don't get repaid, of course, it can taint it. So I'd much rather say, nope, not loaning anymore. And even with, I had an instance with very, very, very close friends recently who are pretty much like family to us. And there was a consideration about giving them loan for some matter. And I even brought it up to my husband and said, oh, do you think we should? He was like, he just shot it down in 2 seconds flat. He was like, absolutely not, no. And I was like, okay, never mind. Go back to our normal way. I was like, let me just forget about it, So mostly it's no.
So, okay, Miranda Marquardt, what is the Miranda policy on lending money to friends or family?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of the same way as Lynette, like if I'm going to provide some help, I make it as a gift and say, here is a gift. And occasionally somebody just goes ahead and just pays me back of their own free will. When my sister got divorced, I'm never getting that money back. I paid her legal bills. I'm never getting that money back, which is fine.
I hope your spouses don't listen to this podcast.
But yeah,
I mean, your spouses, your siblings, I should say.
They don't. So anyway, but yeah, so I mean, for me, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm ready to provide some help. And if I do provide you with help, I'm not going to ask you to pay me back.
Okay. What about you, Aaron?
Simply, I will not give money, but I will give time.
Okay. Now, I want to be very clear too to our listeners that I don't expect a bunch of people to show up with a 6-pack at my house. Okay? Because I want to be very clear. Drunken Stacy does not lend money anymore. And really the reason why, well, I guess like you guys have both alluded to too. If a friend of mine needs, in fact, this happened not that long ago. A girlfriend of ours, her cat became very ill, and it cost $3,000 to fix the cat, and she didn't have that kind of money. So we gave her the money with the saying we don't expect it back, because we're not going to let this cat die. And you know what she's done? Religiously paid it back. But so I guess what I'm saying is that, like you guys, if I'm going to give somebody money, I'm not going to expect to see it back. And if
this poses a question that just popped up in my head. So when people borrow from an institution, why is it this institution puts the fear of God into them to pay this back? But when we give a loan to somebody, we can't. And is there any repercussion if somebody doesn't, if a friend we lend out money, do we have any legalities to pull
Great transition also, Aaron. I was
Aaron,
just
my
about to ask
brother, you
Lynette.
are speaking my language.
Yeah,
So-
there you go. So Lynette, lead us down this road. What are we going to do if you do decide to lend somebody money? What do you do?
So this is one of the things that I tell individuals to kind of break the cycle of, again, what I call financially abusive relationships, because I do think it matters, like the nature of the relationship you had with a person and how frequently they've kind of come to tap the well. Because honestly, sometimes we'll loan money to people that we know, like over and over again, like they constantly put themselves in a bind. They're coming to you with all kind of 11th hour crises, or they have, just a whole range of issues that are going on, some self-inflicted wounds, some external, whatever. But at the end of the day, sometimes I'll tell people, look, if Chase or Citibank or B of A wouldn't take a risk on them and loan them money, why should you? They've shown that they're not, quote unquote, credit worthy to the extent that their ability to borrow and be a responsible borrower who repays that obligation has been hampered. And so I do think that you should kind of look at those factors. People will be more alarmed and fearful of, seeing a creditor, a formal creditor, nixing or dinging their credit and reporting them to the bureaus than they will be, of course, to an individual, because they understand, or they have, proper perspective, frankly, to know it's not like we're credit furnishers. We're not supplying data to Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion and reporting them. But they should, by all rights, have even higher regard, I think, for a family member or a close friend, a loved one, than they will for a third-party institution.
Now, let me ask you this, though, and I've done this too. I would download a promissory note
Absolutely.
from Rocket Lawyer or someplace like that and have them sign it. Now, that does, and I've done this with somebody who, by the way, still owes me money. But nonetheless, though, it makes the it lends a little gravity to the situation. Here's an actual note, which I can use to take you into court and reclaim that money. And now I'm not going to do that, but they don't know that, So in other words, just makes it a little more serious. But would you agree, Lynette, though, if you are going to lend money, obviously depending on the circumstances, but there's no problem downloading a note and having people sign it, is there?
Absolutely. And I 100% would urge people who are going, in fact, to lend for whatever reasons, to have a written agreement. And honestly, I don't even think it's so much about the back end of, potentially being able to take them to small claims court or something like that. Hopefully it would never get to that. The gravity of the situation wouldn't go there. Really, it's about level setting and expectations and clarity and communication about what this entails. Because you would be surprised at how many people say, oh, well, I thought you said I could pay you back next year.
Yeah.
Or, no, you said next month. Or I thought it was no interest. No, there is some interest. Or I thought I could just make monthly payments. Or I thought it was be a lump sum. There's all these different perceptions and interpretations of what kind of just went down in the transaction. So that written note should absolutely specify, is there interest being charged? What is the time frame for the loan to be repaid? What is the frequency with which payments have to be made? Or is there a lump sum involved? What is the recourse? What happens if somebody doesn't repay? So then you start saying, okay, we're treating this as a formal business arrangement. Even though I love you and you're my sister, my cousin, my uncle, my nephew, whatever, we still are going to do this in a responsible manner. And so that we can both respect and appreciate that this is still a financial transaction and hopefully not damage our relationship. But there's absolutely no qualms or no disagreement about what took place if you put it in black and white, because 6 months down the road, memories get foggy. People say, oh, well, I thought wasn't it $500 that you loaned me? No, it was $800 or whatever, Yeah. So you eliminate all of that with a written agreement.
What legally can you,
go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead,
legally,
Aaron.
can you put in that promissory note? I mean, can you? You mentioned interest. I mean, I don't know how you would calculate that in that promissory note, but I'm assuming you could do that. Can you put collateral in there? Can you like say, hey,
Sure.
I want your wedding ring or your car or whatever?
You can.
You
You can put
Yeah.
anything you want in a note, and you should. But essentially, what Lynette said is absolutely true. What it's really doing is saying A, how much money it is, B, when it's supposed to be paid back, and C, what the interest rate is. I mean, if nothing else, you got that, and it's in writing.
All of the terms should be laid out and spelled out, and that both parties agree to those terms. So that when you signed, when you agreed to say, okay, if I don't pay you back, 6 months from now, a year from now, or whatever, then that means that, hey, you know what, that flat screen TV of yours that I've always liked is mine now, or that, I don't know, I'm just randomly making up something, but just, you get the idea that whatever the recourse is, or whatever the two of you agree upon, if that's the case, there would never be, you can even say, don't ever ask again. Like there would never be another loan coming forward. And we just understand that, which kind of seems to be a given.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Miranda. I'm sorry.
So when you talk about the recourse though, and I think, what happens when they don't pay you back, I guess now you have to decide, how do I want to enforce this? Do I really want to go after them? Do I take them to small claims court? Can I report them to the credit bureaus? Like, I mean, I guess once you get to that point, now you have to make that decision, right? Like, am I going to enforce the terms of this? Like, how do we do this?
Well, you're probably
I
not
imagine
going
a lot of times small claims court is going to cost more than.
It actually doesn't cost that much.
No?
I've done it before. It's like, well, it depends on where you live, of course, but the filing fee is like $150. It's not that much. But nonetheless, like I said, the main reason I did it, Lynette said it better than I did, just to set out what we're doing here. Here's how much it is. Here's when it's supposed to be paid back. Here's the interest rate. I mean, I'm not going to take someone to small claims court. It depends on what the situation is. I mean, this is a friend of mine who I know has no money. There's no point in
and also you have to think about,
but there was a point in lending, and also when they come back to you and they go, oh, I paid you that. Remember, let me borrow some more money. I paid you back. No, you didn't. Here it is right here. So having that thing in writing makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lynette, what were you going to say?
Sure. I was just going to say, even if you thought about taking somebody to small claims court over a debt that was not repaid, you have to factor in a whole bunch of things. Obviously, like you said, the filing fee. Okay, fine. But then is your time, stress, aggravation, ability to not be with your family, stay away from work, lose time from the job, etc. What is the cost of all of that? So then you have to think about, is it really worth it or not? And for most people, the answer is probably going to be no, depending on, the size of the loan, of course. But again, I think that ultimately, really, it's about level setting. It's about communicating expectations, that both parties understand the terms fully and understand how, if you're going to make that kind of a loan, how it's supposed to be repaid and under what circumstances.
Yeah. I've got 3 rules here. I've written about this several times. I've been doing this for 30 years. So I've written this story several times. And I pulled this out of one of the things I wrote. 3 rules. Rule number 1, make a policy of saying no. And what that means is decide on a policy, memorize it, and then practice saying it and stick to it. Don't lend money to this guy because you had 3 beers and not that girl over there. So have a policy, practice that policy. And I've done that before. When I have people coming over, I think might borrow money from me. I practice what I'm going to say. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, try to help in other ways. That's something Aaron alluded to.
Absolutely.
Rather than lending you money, I'm going to help you set up a budget. Rather than lending you money, I'm going to introduce you to friends of mine at Consumer Credit Counseling Service who can help you get out from under this debt. Like that.
Teach them how to fish.
Yeah, there you go.
I think too, other ways that you can help, like rather than giving them the money, you can be like, okay, I will pay the utility bill this month. I will buy you some groceries. Here's a gift card to X store where you can buy your own groceries. Just that kind of thing, I think, is also very helpful as well, where and then like Aaron said, providing that time. Okay, I'm not going to give you money, but I can help you move, or whatever.
And Stacy, what was the third?
My third one was one thing we've already covered. If you're going to be treated like a bank, act like a bank. Here's what a bank does. A bank has you sign a note, And so that's what the third thing was, which is what we discussed in some detail already. If you're going to lend money to somebody, you get it in writing. Even if it's your mom, even if it's your parents, you can get a free promissory note online. So like I said, if you're going to be treated like a bank, Start acting like a bank. And then they might just go to somebody else next time when they need a loan.
And can I address one other topic here? We
Please.
haven't really talked about this because, and I really do think like this kind of cuts to the heart of why it is that people loan money in the first place. So, all of this is about personal finances, and the first word is the most important, personal, right? Somebody has tugged at your heartstrings. Somebody is emotionally connected or attached to you in some way. Somebody is a friend, a loved one, and you care about that person. So obviously you don't want to see them suffering or in, a tough jam. But really, a lot of us who are loaning money or contemplating doing so, we need to also think about our own motivations and about what we think will happen on the other side if we don't step up and act as the savior and come to the rescue, on our white horse to kind of save the day. So what I found is that honestly, in some relationships, in some family patterns, and there's dynamics where there's the person who will constantly bail out, everybody who's getting into trouble. And even though it's taxing for them, it's financially draining, it's stressful, etc., to some extent, that person kind of likes being the hero. That person is being served in some way by stepping up to the plate, as it were. And in some way, they've internalized like, well, at least I'm better off than the rest of them because I don't have to go around loaning or, borrowing money from people. So you kind of have to deal with your savior complex. So that's one kind of emotional thing. And then the other side of it is so many of us mistakenly think that if we say no, something bad is going to happen to the relationship and that we're not going to be loved anymore. We're not going to be accepted anymore. They're going to reject us. They're going to be angry with us. They're going to feel mad at us in some way simply because we didn't give money. And what I always say is that if your relationship with somebody is predicated upon you being willing to supply your cash, your credit, or in some way act as the ATM machine, you have to question the nature of the relationship and the quality and the substance of that relationship. It's already gone beyond, just, am I going to give you a loan right now? So again, you think in your mind, oh my God, if I don't give them, the money, the repo man is right outside their door right now. They need $400 this moment to stave off, getting their car repossessed. But you know what? If you step back and said, no, I'm sorry, especially for the one that you knew who, like you said, just bought the boat, just did something else, whatever with their money, you'd be shocked at how many times people come up with creative solutions of their own. And so a lot of times we're trying to be this hero and we need to allow people to kind of tough it out a little bit and go through the normal channels that all adults have to do when they stand on their own 2 feet and resolve problems. Sometimes without our loans as the form of assistance.
Well said, Lynette, and you're absolutely right. And that was me. I did that. Because I made more money than my peers, and so as I was growing up, my peers would come to me for money, and I had this guilt about it, I guess. Or I wanted everyone to like me, so I was everybody's savior. And fortunately for me, I became old and then mean as a snake, so it doesn't work anymore.
Stacy, can I have $20,000? I want to buy a boat.
I said, now I became old and mean as a snake, Aaron. So now I don't lend anybody money. Okay, now we do have to close. And what a great note to close on, Lynette, looking at your own motivations for being either a borrower or a lender. That's a great way to close. But we are out of time, guys. Unfortunately, we are never, however, out of topic. So dig a little deeper. You're going to find links to lots more info in our show notes. And remember, if your goal is to make more, to spend less, to retire rich, well, your online home is moneytalksnews.com. And be sure and visit Miranda's online home as well. That is Miranda Marquit, MARQUIT.com. And of course, you want to visit Lynette. You can find her at askthemoneycoach.com. That's askthemoneycoach.com. If you got a question, comment, or topic you would like to suggest, we would love to hear from you. Email us at hello@moneytalksnews.com. That's hello@moneytalksnews.com. I'm Stacy Johnson.
I'm Miranda Marquit.
I'm Aaron Freeman.
And so, thanks so much for being with us today, Lynette. You were awesome. We want you to be our guest every week from now until the end of time.
I'd love to come back anytime.
All righty. Thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. We're going to see you right here next time.